So, hello, Anna Sambold, my good friend. I wanted to talk to you in this episode of Niche in a Nutshell about something I know that you are very, very elegant and very, very intelligent within, and that is online mediation. And before we dig into the subject in its whole and in all its interesting parts, can you just give me a short bio of yourself?
Sure. Um, Hello, everyone. I'm Anna Sambold. I'm a California lawyer, mediator, and arbitrator, and I'm passionate about anything related to alternative dispute resolution. And I've been working on mediation and arbitration and facilitation for the last 10 years here in San Diego, California. And my background is a big, huge blend of Latino, Italian, and American. So I speak all those languages, and so I serve local and international clients. And I just that's my biggest passion in life, to always help people resolve disputes. And now with COVID-19 and the social distancing new rules, I have found that online mediation is a great way to conduct mediations.
Yeah, and so your educational background, is that law?
Yeah, and originally a lawyer, and after a few years of practice, I realized I found out about mediation.
Yeah.
And as soon as I found out, I fell in love with mediation, and I dedicated myself only to ADR.
Yeah.
That was 10 years ago.
Oh, excellent. And we also owe people, I think you're leaving out a very important part of your own bio. That is that you have served as a neutral or as a mediator for more than 1,000 civil and business related cases. Isn't that right?
Yeah. I have done pretty much everything under the sun in mediation. I have mediated cases related to business disputes, to real estate transactions, insurance, family disputes, anything related, any related dispute, anything that can be mediated, I have mediated, basically.
Yeah. And we also, I think we also owe to tell that our relation actually stems from the year 2020 International Mediation Week held by the ICC in Paris, where we both took home an award as the best looking, respectively, female and male mediator in the world, right? Oh, no, just kidding. But we did meet up in Paris at the ICC and the Mediation Week. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is because I know you also have probably the unofficial record as the one having had the longest online mediation session of 9 hours, right?
I just broke my record the last week. I'm wondering if somebody else had done it for more than 9 hours, but that was my breaking record.
Yeah.
9 hours mediating online.
Quite interesting. But let's dig into the subject. And can you tell me about, from your perspective, what do you see as an important part of online mediation? How would you conceptualize online mediation? Is it only Zoom meetings, or are you also doing it on email?
Well, basically the difference between in-person mediation and online mediation is you're using an online platform to conduct the whole process. So I really like Zoom. I'm using Zoom all the time, but now many online platforms are starting to pop out everywhere. I know that Modron is offering online mediation services. I think Microsoft Teams, RDO, and different platforms are coming up everywhere. but I have found Zoom to be very easy to use and very convenient, pretty simple.
Yeah.
And the first time that I used it, it was 6 years ago. It's pretty interesting. I was in Spain and I needed to do a mediation with somebody in California, and somebody told me about Zoom, and I tried for first time in 2016. And I thought it was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
And just doing it by video conference with people everywhere in different locations. But the funny thing is I keep offering to my clients and to people and saying, look, we can do it by video conference using Zoom. But at that time, people weren't interested in trying something different and new. No. And so I guess the pandemic and the COVID-19 was just the best thing for online mediation because people didn't have a choice. Yeah. So they start from being reluctant to try it. Now they figure, well, we don't have a choice, so let's try it. And now that they try it, now everybody's using Zoom for everything, for birthday parties, for virtual happy hours, even kids in kindergarten and in little preschool, and little kids are using and taking Zoom classes. So I guess now everybody knows about Zoom, and so it makes it more easy to sell.
Tell me about the process, because we all know as mediators that normally we get into the room with the parties and we sit down, and as a mediator we start telling them about the rules of a mediation, the confidentiality, the courtesy, speak your mind and speak your emotions, but speak in kind, and we lay often an agenda where we say, well, we have the intro and we have certain processes. In your experience with online mediation, does that differ, or the way you handle it, is that different?
Well, what I have experienced is that in online mediation, you have to work with the parties on preparation a lot more than in a regular in-person mediation, because in my private commercial cases, I have to talk to the lawyers ahead of time, and I normally have a pre-mediation phone call. I normally get a mediation brief ahead of time, but now is my regular practice to provide some type of online mediation guidelines. And I want to be sure that they keep in mind that they need some technical setup, and I want to be sure that they relate all those instructions to their clients, and they prepare the clients not only for the mediation but for the online process. So I want them to be sure that they download the application ahead of time, that they are familiar with the application ahead of time. I send them links to the Zoom tutorials, because Zoom has really amazing tutorials, so you can watch them and just learn about everything, about how to set up a meeting, how to create breakout rooms, everything. How to share the screen. If you want to document and you want to share it through the mediation, you can share it on Zoom. So I want them to be familiar with everything. So I have found that, pre-mediation preparation is the key. I think requires a little more from the mediator and from the parties and counsel that in a regular in-person mediation. But once you've done it once, you get it, and you understand how to do it and do it fast and quickly. So now I have my virtual guidelines and my agreement and my rules, and I just send them ahead of time before the mediation, so they have everything. And so that's what I would recommend to everyone, to have like a checklist of everything that you have to keep in mind before the mediation online, and prepare the client accordingly, and then just click on the link that the mediator is going to send you, and voila, you are in the mediation, an online mediation.
And how, when you then start the meeting and you set the stage for the online mediation, what is your experience in terms of building rapport when people are not in the same room, and you cannot make sure you have eye contact? You can look into the camera, but you cannot make sure that you have eye contact. do you take any precautions or any tips and tricks?
Well, you know what? I get that question all the time. A lot of, especially mediators, are afraid that that you won't be able to engage with the parties as well as an in-person mediation. But my experience is that I can see the people's face, and sometimes I see the background. Yeah. Sometimes I can. Sometimes I have. The last week I have a client that she was holding her dog, and she was petting her dog, and so I start talking to her about her dog, and I think so that was a way to connect and to engage with her. Yeah. Another client in another mediation, she had a beautiful picture of art in the background. Yeah. So we started talking about the painting. Yeah. And she started telling me about the artwork, and we engaged in a different way. Yeah. And obviously you're more aware of all the facial expressions because you have the people's face right there on the screen. Yeah. So I think that there are many ways that you can engage. You just need to be more creative and more alert to everything. But you can perfectly engage with an established rapport with the parties in an online mediation.
And normally people will know when you're talking to one of them by just looking at them. But I guess in an online mediation, you almost have to address the name prior to addressing someone so that they know that it is them that you are looking at and you're speaking to, right? Yeah. And also, I guess, talking about the paintings in the background, you need to make sure that they are not using a virtual background, right?
Well, whatever works. Yeah. Some people, I believe that is like for me. Yeah. I like to keep it professional, and I have a bunch of virtual backgrounds according to the occasion. So if I'm teaching online, that's another thing I used to do. Yeah. I used to teach in this master's program, and I used to teach through Zoom to international lawyers. And obviously you want to have a professional background. Yeah. And obviously you have to tell people, please be sure that your background and your surroundings are professional, that you dress appropriately, that you have a good internet connection, that you have a good audio, because all of that affects in how effective communication is going to be online. Yeah.
So do you start the meeting after you've done the intro by giving the word to the requesting party and then also the lawyer or the counsel and then the responding party, or how do you do it from a practical point of view?
Well, and that depends on the type of case that I have. So for example, the last week for the 9-hour mediation that I told you about, that was an employment case. On an employment case, what I have experienced is that they're very emotional, and the employee, they really want to talk, and they really want to be heard by the company representative. So I always have a joint session with everyone in the beginning, and I let them present the case, and I let them give us an overview of what happened. And I ask the respondent or the defendant to say something at the end too. And then I just take them to different virtual rooms, and I just have an individual meeting with each side. But in another cases, especially in commercial business cases, lawyers are not used to see each other, and they don't like to see each other, at least here in California. And so I know if I get them together in a joint session, they're gonna be really mad at me. And so but anyway, I always ask them in my pre-mediation phone call. I was in a pre-mediation phone call with some lawyers that I'm mediating on Monday, and that was the first thing I said. Like, look, in that in-person meeting, I normally assume that lawyers, they don't want to see each other, and I usually take them straight to different rooms. But in an online mediation, let me ask you, you want to just get together for a little bit and and I ask everyone to introduce themselves, and that way everybody can see that it's real people participating in this process.
Yeah.
And then I take you to a different virtual room, and they say, yeah, that's perfect. And so I get the approval, and that's what I normally do.
Okay, so the lawyers or the counsels, they are introducing themselves, and then you put them in a breakout room, and then if the parties actually need the lawyers, they can go to that breakout room and talk to them and bring them back, or come back after they have counseled, or.
Well, this is the way it works. In the beginning, I admit everyone into the room.
Yes.
So we have everyone on the screen. So I welcome everyone, and I ask them to introduce themselves. And I start always with the claimant or the plaintiff, and then with his lawyer, and then with the defendant or the respondent and his lawyer. And sometimes I have insurance representatives. Sometimes I have emotional support people. Sometimes in my cases, they have their wife or they have their father or somebody with them. So I want them to introduce themselves to everyone. And then I say, okay, great. Now I'm going to take you to a different virtual room. So I create different breakout rooms ahead of time. And I just start assigning people according to who they are. So I assign the client, the plaintiff with his lawyer to one room, and then assign the defendant and the client and the defendant's lawyer in another room. And I just go back and forth between all those virtual rooms.
Okay, and the lawyers or the counsels, when they are in the breakout room, they cannot hear or see what goes on in the mediation room, right?
No, they have those virtual rooms, and that's one of the greatest things about Zoom is that they have that feature. So those little virtual rooms are totally private and confidential. So whatever you're saying, nobody can hear you.
No.
And the mediator, the one that is hosting the meeting, is the only one that can switch and move people around. And so I'm the only one, when I go back and forth, that I can change my location from one room to another one, and assign and move people around. So sometimes I want to talk to the lawyer by himself. So I pull him out of one virtual room and I take him to another one to talk to me individually. And I put him back with the client. So, and that works just great. It's just super convenient, super easy.
So when you do an online mediation session, you use, of course, you use breaks for lunch and stuff like that. Do you then close the meeting, or do you just ask people to be back in an hour? Or
you know what? Sometimes I found that it's just easy to say, look, just take a break while I'm talking to the other side. Don't disconnect. Just leave it on mute, and that way we don't hear you having dinner with your family or having a coffee or something. And when you're ready, just call me on my cell phone or send me a message and say, I'm ready. Perfect. So and that's just perfect, because everyone can get a lot of things done while you're talking to the other side. And an in-person mediation, the people were basically waiting for the mediator to come back to them. But in an online mediation, that's one of the biggest benefits. The people can use their time appropriately and can do a lot of things while the mediator is talking to the other side.
So when you take a caucus with one of the parties, can it be up to an hour, or do they last longer, and then you give the other party a break, or how do you manage that?
I know, and I always in the beginning, my policy is to start with the person that initiated the claim. So I always start with the claimant or the plaintiff, and then normally that first private meeting always takes at least half an hour, because I want to hear about what happened and everything that I need to know before approaching the defendant or the respondent. So that one normally takes at least half an hour. And so I'm gonna tell the defendant ahead of time. the first private caucus I'm gonna have is gonna take me at least half an hour. So don't start getting freaked out if you don't hear from me in half an hour. I will come back to you. Don't you worry. Okay, that's part of the process, and that's the kind of stuff I prepare my clients ahead of time and before the mediation. And that way they know what to expect.
And when you, I guess in most mediations we get to a point where after the parties have stated their positions and their perception of reality and their perception of what has happened, and we have tried to understand their interest and underlying interest and all of that, and it comes down to the problem solving where we try to brainstorm for solutions or whatever. How do you manage that process in an online mediation? Do you have like a blackboard or whiteboard where you write down options, or how do you do it?
Well, every case is so different, and sometimes I just customize it according to the subject matter of the case, the personalities that I have involved, because everybody's so different, and I never know what I'm gonna get until we start talking and negotiating. Some people is more receptive to just keep talking about what happened and being understood and being heard. And other people, they just really want to start talking about, okay, this is my opening demand. And I want to hear back from them. What is the response? What are going to be the counter offer? So this is it. And they go straight to business. So whatever, depending on what I get, I customize my process and what I'm gonna do in reaction to it.
But have you had yet an online mediation where you conducted like a by the book brainstorming session, you know, where you ask each of the parties to come up with ideas and not discuss the ideas until they have all been put on the table, or have you experienced that it's more like a flow that goes on?
Yeah, and it's especially when we're like creating like the last week in this employment case, we were working about all the benefits that this employee will get in order for them to terminate and create a severance package that was attractive to her. So we went back and forth. I created a document and we listed everything, all the benefits that she can get in exchange for her to leave the company. So we were, obviously the company was saying, okay, I can do this. I can provide these benefits. I can provide this. I can pay her this amount of money. And we went back and forth according to that list. And I was just sharing the document with them and say, look, what about this? And they say, no, remove that. Okay, let's go back to talk about this benefit. What about this? And that's what I did. Eventually, everything. They both agreed to all the items that we have created in that list, and we draft the agreement.
Yeah. So when you do the pre-mediation session, when you talk with the parties prior to the mediation, are you addressing the fact that because it's online that they should try to be to the point and keep it short in order not to stress the attention span of the other party, or are you encouraging them to spend the amount of time they need to get whatever they have off their chest?
Yeah, especially in employment cases, I talk to the employee and I explain to them and their lawyers that I know that this is very important to them, and I recommend them always to have like a bullet points of what they're gonna say, and that way they don't start repeating themselves about something, and they go to the main points of their case, and they are more persuasive and compelling. And so I always emphasize on that and being prepared, having a list of what they're gonna talk about, especially in the joint session. And that is always the case, and they come prepared with their bullet points, and that's what they go for, and that's what they do normally in the joint session.
And when we talk about this online mediation thing, if you were to state first the cons and then the pros, I know normally we say the pros and the cons, but in order to have it on a positive note, what do you think, based on your experience so far in both in-person mediations and online mediations, that the negative side, the cons of it, if you should state what you feel are the most challenging?
Well, I would say that having the knowledge of having, I think that it can be an implicit bias against a client or against somebody that is no really good at handling the whole technology.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and people can get very frustrated with somebody that doesn't get it. Yeah. I have a case in a mediation where the client couldn't figure out how the audio works. Mm. And so we couldn't hear him. So everybody was getting very frustrated with him. So the lawyer was getting frustrated with him. I was getting frustrated because we couldn't hear him. Yeah. And he keeps going on and off. And so obviously that makes a difference, and that obviously is going to impact the negotiation, right? Because and I realized at that point how important it is to be prepared and have everything ready, being and know how everything works. And that's kind of technology savvy, like knowing how everything is going to work is super important. Not only the process, but the technology involved in everything. Otherwise, people get very frustrated, and your negotiation is going to fall apart because of that.
So surely technology can be its own worst enemy, because the technology is great, but if the person's using the technology is a bad match, then it can work against itself, right? But do you see other cons of online mediation or challenges that other mediators should be aware of in terms of rapport building, or something that can go wrong if they don't pay attention to it?
Well, in regard to establishing rapport, like I said, I always believe that you can in some way engage with the parties. You just have to be more creative and come out with different ways to engage with them. But I think it's possible. It just requires more work from the mediator. And like I said, it's just about getting the people prepared. Be sure that everybody knows and understand how the process is going to work. They are familiar with the application, with how the process works, and hopefully from the practical tips. And I always told my clients, and that's what it is, I always send this email with the checklist of all the stuff that they need to keep in mind, from the background to the lighting to the place where they're sitting, because sometimes I have parties that are sitting behind the window. So obviously their face is all dark, so we can see them. Be sure that your audio works. Be sure that you're in a Starbucks or somewhere where there's public internet. No, be sure that you're in a private place where you have a strong internet connection, and you're not going to have any problems with your internet connection. Be sure that you have my cell phone number in case of something happened, and you can call me and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I can't get in," and I can figure out a way to get him back into the mediation. So all of that kind of stuff, I say, is part of the preparation before the mediation. That's what I say is preparation.
And I guess one of the pros of online mediation is that it is way easier to get all the calendars to fit each other, right? Because you limit all the traveling, and people can. It is much more flexible to find a time where everybody can join, because they don't have to travel to get there. Are there any other pros or positives, so to say, about online mediation? Is it less expensive, or any other things that
well, I would say the number one benefit is you're going to keep everyone safe.
Yeah.
Nowadays, with social distancing and COVID-19, everybody's afraid to get together. And the last week when I did when my office reopened after 3 months, we have new COVID-19 safety guidelines
Yeah.
to follow. So I have to wear a mask the whole time. I had to ask everyone to wear a mask. I had to keep everyone 6 feet apart from me. So, and I have to, keep all the hand sanitizer next to me. I was like telling everyone, please just keep your mask on the whole time.
Yeah.
And I know it's pretty annoying, but that's what we need to do. And that kind of, we don't have to deal with that hassle in an online mediation.
No.
You don't have to worry about COVID-19 and being exposed to anything. And so that's what I said, that will be the number one benefit. Everybody from their own place. You don't have to travel. You don't have to deal with traffic. You don't have to be afraid of being exposed to 6 people in the same room that are super close to you, they're sitting right next to you. Because I'm pretty sure that people will get freaked out about that. Like, oh gosh, I'm spending 6 hours in the same conference room right next to 6 people around me. That makes a big difference. And
I would expect another pro of online mediation is that normally in a mediation session, when somebody shares a document, they perhaps hand over a copy to the other party, and the other party has to read it, but they might be stressing in reading it because they're sitting across someone who's expecting them to come with a reply. But in online mediation, I guess there comes a natural form of presenting the document, because the person with the document will share it on the screen, and then the one who shares it will go through the document for all of the parties to listen to it and absorb it in a good pace, instead of someone reading it in a hurry, right?
Exactly. And sometimes I ask the lawyers if I can show their mediation brief to the opposing side. And what I do in the middle of the mediation, and when I'm talking in a private meeting with one side, I say, I'm going to show you the mediation brief and we're going to go through everything. And that way you remember what are their claims and what are they saying. And that way you understand what they're saying. And so I screen share and I start showing the document, and we can go through everything. Sometimes they have exhibits, they have pictures, they have really good information that I can share and I can show them. And so they're able to see it. I had a personal injury case 2 weeks ago. And when I showed the pictures of the accident, the insurance adjuster and the defendant was the first time that they were able to see everything. So I walked them through it, like, look how the truck ended up, and look what the accident looks like. So we went through all the exhibits, we went through everything. And so the people have time, and they have finally, I guess when you're in a rush, you kind of go through everything quickly, but in a mediation, you can share the document and go through everything together.
So obviously you're pretty excited about online mediation, and would you say that once we are over all this COVID-19 or coronavirus, that once we are all safe and sound and we can meet and get together again, will you then promote online mediation as the thing to do, or will it be your plan B in terms of physical meetings?
Well, I think now that people got a taste of the online mediation, and people is trying, if people finally realize how convenient and how easy and how much money and time they can save by conducting a mediation online. So I think this is gonna be probably like now probably people's gonna say, but why to meet in person if we can do it online? And now that they have tried, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be hard to go back to in person. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be some people that is still reluctant. Like I say, I still doing in-person mediations, and we start doing it again when my office reopened the last week. But I think so that is gonna be the exception, because now that everybody tried, everybody realized how convenient and how easy and how like how much money you can save, how much time you can save.
Yeah, because I guess you will, at least as a client, you will probably save some traveling money for your lawyers, when they can do it. So if they have to spend 4 hours in a car to get somewhere or whatever, or even a flight, you can save quite a lot of those expenses, both out-of-pocket expenses, but also the hourly amount of hours spent by the lawyer, right? Then just to wrap things up, actually, I was in a meeting some days ago with one of the persons that I really admire a lot, the former FBI agent Joe Navarro, who is one of the leading experts in nonverbals and body language. And one of the things he said about Zoom meetings was that when you're in the same room, we all see the same things. But if you're in a Zoom meeting with 6 people, you have 6 different backgrounds. And in his opinion, that would tire out your brain, because you have to, observe. Without you knowing it, your brain is analyzing and scanning 6 different rooms instead of being in one room. So he had this cautious remark that that when you're in the Zoom meeting, he says that if people have the same background as a default, that would take some stress from the brain, because it would not have to pay attention to 6 different backgrounds. And I don't know if that's true or not, but
that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, and I think so. It is. It can be distracting when you have, obviously, you have many people on the screen, and already you're distracted already with the facial expressions, and besides with the background. Yeah, that can make it very distracting, but I'm pretty sure it's more work for your brain.
Yeah, so it's just an interesting little remark that we don't think about it because it's subconscious, that our brain is spending time analyzing all the backgrounds because it has to, right? But yeah, it was just a fun.
That's why you have just the plain white background.
Exactly, not to stress my friend in San Diego. You are in San Diego now?
San Diego.
Oh, excellent. So, Anna, any last remarks in terms of tips and tricks, or just any thumb up you want to give to online mediation before we say goodbye?
Well, I just think that with all the challenges that we're facing right now, everywhere globally, we have coronavirus, and we have social unrest, and racial inequity, and racial injustices, and we're facing a lot of challenges. And I think so that's what I always promote, mediation. But I think so now more than ever we need it. We need to address our conflict in a different way, and I think so mediation is just the greatest way to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I hope that we will get to see much more mediation. It is not as used in Denmark, but it is picking up in pace in Denmark, and it's looking very, very positive for the future as well. And I hope that we will get to the point where mediation is as used a method as it is in the US. So hopefully, when we speak again some next February in Paris, hopefully Denmark has even gone longer into mediation than we are right now. But I would like to thank you so much for participating and sharing all your experiences on online mediation. And hopefully we can look into your checklist someday, and it could serve as a template for other mediators trying to do online mediation.
And I keep changing it every day. It's amazing, because every day I keep realizing, oh my God, I need to remind them about this, and I need to remind them about this. So it's a never-ending checklist.
Yeah. Well,
but
excellent. And thank you very much, Anna. And we'll see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And we will see each other in Paris. And stay safe and keep mediating.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye,
bye everyone.
Bye.